Welcome back to Pie to the Corner. My name is Pat,
And I'm Shane.
and here we go again. How you doing, Shane?
Here I go again on my own. I'm good, dude. I think I've sung that song once before because every time you say "Here we go again," that song goes through my head. That's like the epic metal power ballad.
Yeah, of
I
the
I
80s.
I
It's the
think it's
80s.
the one that they all. I don't know if it was like the one they were all the other ones were based off of, or it was the biggest one. But that song is seared in my brain, and these days it's in commercials and everything. It's a song that will never go away.
Yeah, it was a big hit for, wasn't it White Snake or
It
something?
was. It was David Coverdale, man.
Yeah, yeah, the fucking Robert Plant wannabe.
Uh huh.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't, I'm not gonna knock the guy. Obviously, he did. He took it and ran with it. He took it and ran with it for
That's him.
sure.
That's
But
I know. That's him and Robert Plant, man. They both have sexy chests.
yeah, and funny enough, like he actually ended up playing with Jimmy Page at one point too, like
Well, he
cover band
I
thing.
guess he was in Deep Purple for a while. I didn't know that, but yeah, he was kind of. They all knew each other from England.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. So
So
you went on a bike ride today, I understand. Is that correct?
yeah, I did, dude. Taking the electric bike out still. I got a nice photo of my Specialized Turbo Como. No product plug there because I really don't think anybody cares. But I took a really cool shot up on Dougsom Hill of the bike with the city behind it, and posted it on my personal Instagram feed and mentioned Specialized. So hopefully
Yeah.
that'll make me viral or something.
Yeah, you'll go.
Uh,
You get a
but yeah,
special.
dude, one thing you may not know about this bike is this one gives you pedal assist up to 28 miles an hour. My other one only went to 20.
Hmm.
So if you're going over 20, it's just through pedal power. But this will continue to help you all the way up to 28. No, I don't think I've ever got it to 28, but I cruise on the streets all the time at 25 miles an hour. And in the city, that's cruising with traffic. So it's kind of much safer, because
Yeah, you're basically going
you
with the
can
flow, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you're going with the flow, and you beat everybody off the line at every fucking stop or red light.
Really?
Like I fucking smoke them, dude. You know.
Well, that's one thing about electricity with vehicles, man, is it's got a lot of torque.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same thing with the bikes. Just to talk about this for one other second, I had
Sure.
a really annoying moment up at the top of Dougsom Hill. Every time I go to Dougsom Hill, I glance up there to see, if there's anybody up there, if there's a party going on up there, because I like to go up there and have a little bit of solitude. Even if it's only for like 3 minutes,
Yeah.
it's really nice to go up there and have a moment with the skyline. Well, I got up there and there was one other person there, and then out of the corner of my eye I saw some dude powering up the hill on an electric bike just using all throttle, just like a little moped. I was like, oh my God, those guys annoy the fuck out of me, man. Why don't you just get a little
They're
motorcycle?
not
And
properly
so
using.
then when he got to the top of the hill, he started riding in circles and he was riding real close to me. And I didn't even bat an eye or look at him once because I didn't like the helmet he was wearing. And so then he stopped, like right in my personal space, and started,
What? Why?
yeah,
Oh, because you had
he
electric
started
bike.
talking about to me about my bike. And then he proceeded to do like just the most uncool thing you could ever do. He's
Take it for
like,
a ride.
no, he's like, how many watts does that thing have? And then he's like, oh yeah, this one has 1,000. And I was just like, I don't even know what those numbers mean, dude. I'm not trying to compare my bike to yours. And I basically, oh, and he had, those people that ride around with their radios on their bike and
Oh,
they're just he was blasting
yeah.
Pink Floyd to everybody in the park. And so, like the second he parked there, I grabbed my helmet, put it on. It's
Hater. Oh my God. How many watts you got? Well, it's
I
like,
mean,
yeah,
come on.
so like I like to actually ride my bike from occasionally. I don't just use the fucking motor on it. So
Yeah, I felt like I was in an indie film there at the top of the hill.
I'm gonna make this really awkward, okay? And action.
Well, the little circle thing was fucking
Yeah, what the
bizarre,
hell was
dude. What was
that?
he
That's
doing? I
like
felt I was in like with his little helmet. It was a goofy helmet. He looked like a circus act, dude, riding in circles at the top of the hill.
he's trying to pull some stupid power move, like with his 1,000 watt fucking electric bike.
So I adjusted my light this time, man. I noticed that the way I had it going, I always had a shadow on the side of my head, and I'm fucking right on today,
Yeah,
dude.
see, I actually put mine over. here just because I was getting that shine on my
Uh-huh.
head. So I was maybe to do this, and it's good natural daylight anyway. So
Yeah.
so it doesn't. I think it's a good one. It's going to have a little shadow over here, I guess, but that's okay. We will adjust. So what did I do today? Oh, I had an awesome delivery today. So I told you about this the other night, but my whole guitar playing life, I've always wanted to have a univibe, and which is like a, for anybody who doesn't know, it's like a modulation of your signal. Sounds kind of watery. It's supposed to mimic the sound of like Hammond organ or something like that, like a B3, the woo 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 kind of sound, and made popular, most famously by Jimi Hendrix. A lot of players have used it since. But anyways, so I've always wanted to get one of those. I huge Hendrix fan as a learner, and still am, but I didn't know what that sound was. I just thought, oh, okay, it's a phaser or a flanger or something. And so I would get a phaser and a flanger, and I'd be like, it's sort of it, but something's missing. I don't even think I ever saw like a real univibe until I was like 25 or something like that, like an actual unit. And I was like, oh shit, that's big. It's actually a pretty big thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, at that point it was in a music store. It was like $1,500. And I'm like, okay, I don't have any money, so I'm not going to be buying that. So anyways, now those go for a real one, like from the 60s, goes for like over 3,500. So, but Shinai, which is the company that makes them, has reproduced it, and it's a little bit of a smaller enclosure, and for it's still pretty hefty price, but it's reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
I went ahead and got one that was used from like a music store in Michigan and sent away for it, and it delivered today. So I hooked that baby up, and dude, it was like everything I wanted it to be. They have univibe pedals now, like that are smaller, like an MXR has a univibe.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of companies have univibes. But there's always something, it's like, it sounds like it, but there's something missing. And I'm sure it's something with what kind of electronics that are inside of it, but man, it's just like this watery, just nice tone. It doesn't screw with your natural tone of your guitar or your amp. It just adds to it, and it actually makes it even a little bit more like solid. And oh god, dude, I had so much fun this morning.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it was like one of those, like, I've been wanting that my whole life for a long time, and finally was like, screw it, I'm gonna get it. I found.
So what is it? Is it like a reissue or a replica, or what is it?
It's a really faithful replica.
Okay.
I think there's some transistors in there that you can't get anymore,
Mm-hmm.
like Germain,
Right, yeah.
but it's made by that same company that
Mm-hmm.
made the original, and it's about as close as a replica as you can get. And same with the enclosure. It's kind of similar, but it's just like, it's like 15% thinner, or shorter, I should say. But you can hook in a what they call like a expression pedal. So I don't have that. That's like another $250, but it looks like a wah pedal, and like you can make it go faster with your foot, slower, while you're playing it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. What it basically does is it pretends like you're playing through a Leslie speaker.
Exactly.
That's the way I understand it. Mm-hmm. And so what the reaction pedal would do, it would speed up the speed of the Leslie speaker, or slow it down. So that's really cool. I'm jealous. I'm very jealous.
Yeah, and I mean, actually, it's kind of interesting because I lately have been like wondering about pedals, like what the hell makes a pedal, like what, and what's, because I've looked inside pedals when they broke in or whatever, and I'm like, well, I don't have any fucking idea what I'm looking at. But so I did a bunch of research on that, and it has these 4 light sensitive diodes in it, and that's what makes and then the light, the LED that spins around is what hits the diode, and it makes
wow. Interesting.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of cool that's like inside of there. But it's just interesting, like looking at guitar pedals and how they're made, and you can like I have a TS9 Tube Screamer, which is a very famous guitar pedal used by a lot of players. Stevie Ray Vaughan used to use a TS9, TS808, but you can go in there and take two transistors out and replace them with 2 other types of transistors, and basically turning it into a TS-808.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like looking at it, I'm like, it's really not hard. You have to have a solder gun and
Mm-hmm.
know a little bit how to do that. But I just, it's something I'm starting to develop a little interest in. I think it's
Well, if
cool.
you want to go, further down that road, which I imagine you will, I don't know if you know this, Scott Gilmore has been building pedals lately.
Oh, really?
It's
Cool.
easier now than ever because they sell clone kits where it'll just be a blank box, and then you buy the board that you want to put in it, and then you buy whatever buttons or knobs you want.
Mhm.
And the biggest learning curve is just getting your soldering skills up to speed, or to where you're a clean solderer.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you're doing it on your own pedals, it doesn't really matter if it's perfect, and you'll get better each time you do it.
Yeah.
But it's quite easy. It's basically you'll get an empty circuit board with all the holes pre-drilled, and then you just insert, the transistors or capacitors or whatever that board requires by following instructions. And then it's kind of plug and play. I mean, just to
Yeah.
kind of demystify it for you. You might know about that already.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a couple YouTube channels. One's called the JHS Show, and there are these. It's not a boutique pedal anymore, but it used to be a boutique pedal, JHS. And the guy that actually has built them does his own show, and he modded a fuzz face inside, and he took like the volume pedal, and he's like, well, I leave my volume up all the time, so he put a volume pedal inside the enclosure, with the little actuator, and it kind of showed how to do the soldering and everything. I mean, it was super interesting, right? And so what he did was he did that, and then in the place of the volume pedal, he put like a biance, not biance. What am I thinking? What's the word? It's not volume, but it does something else to the sound where he can make the fuzz pedal sound like a Jack White type fuzz pedal, where it's got that really bias knob. So it makes it so it's like really takes out all the bottom and top. Basically, it's kind of like a compressor almost. It's super cool. I mean, it was like really cool to just watch him do it. So it's just an interesting thing. I'm like, now that I've been like thinking about like what else could I do with my time and things that I would enjoy, and that was one thing that came to mind was like, and just like you said, that's what they do is a lot of people, you can get those clone pedals and then change stuff out, and you can make it whatever you want. Basically,
and you benefit twofold. Like you have a fun new hobby, maybe threefold. You can learn how to customize sounds in the way that you want them, that maybe an out of the box pedal doesn't do. But number three, you can make a pedal for pennies on the dollar. Like
right.
You can make a pedal for like $35 or $50, dude.
Yeah. And you can, and it's cool, yeah, because like you can get the schematics for any pedal you want. Really.
Exactly.
I mean,
and you could probably watch. You could
probably
watch a YouTube video on how to make it too.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
What an age we live in.
I spend so much time on YouTube these days. Generally, I'm such a curious, wondering type person. So most content I consume is either like how-to videos or documentaries that are answering a question, and
yeah.
I'm just so thankful for that platform. It's truly changed the world.
I mean, it's true, man. I'm the same way. I don't really watch a lot. I don't watch any normal TV. I'll just put that out there. I'm not one of those, like, I don't have a TV, but I don't watch that kind of shit. And it's funny because like here at my apartment complex, they're like, well, you're going to get free channels now and free cable. And I was like, well, whatever. I'm not buying like a box. I'm not going to rent a box. So finally, somehow the channels came on, and I was like, these are the worst channels I've ever seen.
With the worst content ever.
I know. It's just terrible content. Absolutely the worst. It's like all these like knockoff sports, like it's MMA, but it's like the lowest level MMA there is.
Yeah.
And then or it's like,
you know why, don't you? Because it's super cheap content that they don't have to pay much for.
You're right, which is why they give deals to apartment complexes.
Well, that's the same reason all of those cable channels, all they do is just re-show old content from like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Because they don't have to pay for new content.
Oh, well, they have like the only channel, literally the only channel that I liked on the whole thing was the Kitchen Nightmares channel. And it was literally called Kitchen Nightmares channel.
Yeah.
It just played reruns of Kitchen Nightmares. and Hell's Kitchen, and that was it.
Yeah,
It
I've
was
seen a
basically
couple of those channels, and they're good to kill a day with or whatever.
right. Yeah, something to do. But yeah, I mean, so the YouTube thing is just amazing. I hope it. I really, I mean, it worries me some of the stuff they're talking about as far as
Hmm.
censorship, and I mean, even a lot of these copyright knocks that people get is just really kind of I could see that really starting to ruin
Well,
the
it's
content level. But
it's going to, Pat, but there will be new platforms on the horizon. YouTube may not be the primary platform, say 10 years from now. You know how that goes.
right,
You remember when eBay was king? When was the last time you bought
right,
something on
yeah,
eBay? And eBay was
yeah.
fucking huge. I mean, you
Well,
couldn't get bigger than eBay.
or what was
And
the social
nobody
media
uses eBay.
platform? Yeah,
Yeah,
right, eBay,
MySpace or
MySpace. Those things were like huge
so.
in the early
But
90s.
listen to what I want to say. I remember the very first times I started hearing about governments around the world shutting down social media to counter revolutionary activism or stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I knew immediately that eventually that was going to happen here, because it has to do with the power structures of the world, and there's people that are so powerful that can make that happen with just a phone call.
Yeah.
Okay, we
Yeah.
know this about power, and so that's happening here already. But like, what if, for instance, the Capitol resurrection would have gotten way more intense than it did? Uh,
Insurrection,
yeah. What did I say?
resurrection.
Oh Lord.
Let's hope
Yeah.
there's no capital
Um,
resurrection.
if
But
that
yeah,
would have
sorry.
gone substantially worse than it did, they might have shut down cell phone service or social media in the DC area,
Mhm.
geo fence it or something.
Yeah.
That could have happened, and that will happen in America, okay? But let's leave that alone. I was reading the other day that one of the reasons, I don't know how much you've read about blockchain technology and what it really is. Like, it's so much more than just cryptocurrency. It's a way for two people to have transactions that happen in a decentralized manner, to where you don't have to pay the piper, so to speak.
Hmm.
And that was the original plan of the people that made the internet, to have the internet be way more decentralized than it's become, to where it's not ruled by government and it's not ruled by multinational corporations. That was the utopian dream of the founders of the internet. And we kind of had the wild wide west in, I'd say, the late 90s and the early 2000s. It was kind of the anything goes internet, and it was a
Yeah.
blast, but it didn't last.
Yeah.
But what some people are saying, that blockchain is going to enable us to have new social media platforms that are not owned by these people, that are more secure, that can never be taken down.
Well,
Isn't that exciting?
that is, and what I love about that whole thing, anyways, is all the people that are capable of doing that are not part of the power structure. Now, the power structure will try to hire those
But
people.
they're way smarter than the power
Yeah,
structure,
that's the
dude.
thing. That we're talking people that some of them don't even know how to use a computer still, and I'm not trying to be like ageist, but let's face it, there's like a growing population of people that run things that fucking thought that the internet was just a series of tubes. That whole meme was just like, holy shit, this is the people that are making decisions for how we get our content.
I think the blowback that we get as far as ageism, let me just tell you something right now. Nobody's critical of them because they're 80 years old. I mean, maybe some people are. We're critical of them because they're not representative of us.
Yeah.
That's the fundamental problem. They came from a different, century, or we
Yeah.
share different
Yeah.
realities. We share different ways of looking at the world, and their interests and preferences and even moral compass is not the same as ours. So they're making decisions in their best interest for our world. It's not their world anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
think about that ageism thing. I call bullshit on that, dude. That's just a way to get people to shut up, because people are like, "Oh no, you're right. I can't make fun of the old
Yeah.
people."
It's another
But
way
the
to
issue
cancel
the issue is
people.
way deeper than that, man.
Well, it's true, and it's like an old way of thinking. Like this is disgusting stuff on the internet. I saw a woman's butt on there. This like stuff that that, let's face it, when they're alone, they're doing the same shit. But it's true, man. And they're so much more beholden to like a corporation or a company that says, hey, that's wrong. You shouldn't allow that. Okay, I'll vote against it, kind of thing. And, hey, give me some money and I'll do it even more. But yeah, it's true. I mean, the blockchain thing's really interesting. I mean, 'cause, dude, I remember when Bitcoin came out, and it was like 33 cents or 4 cents a Bitcoin. But I mean, that didn't last very long. It quickly went up. But even at some point, it was even only like $100 or so. Could you imagine? Because now it's like at 30,000 or some ridiculous
60,000. It went to 60,000 this
so
yesterday. Yeah.
So yeah, I think I'm curious about that now, because when you say it's more secure, that I can see, but they can't take it down. I wonder. There's got to be a way for them to figure that out. I'm guessing they're going to try and figure that out.
Well, they're going to try, but just like, they try to open iPhones and stuff, we're going to keep trying to keep it to where they can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to your point of who's smarter in this long-term struggle,
right?
Who's more determined to, stick it out and out.
Well,
I don't know.
Who's going to physically stick it out? True.
Yeah,
I mean, truly, like at some point, a lot of those same people will start to kind of, shuffle off. Mm-hmm. And the only, question then is like, are there younger people in training that are going to come up and try and do the same shit? I suppose. But, millennials, who are, let's face it, they're not like teenagers anymore. These are people in their 30s now. Mm-hmm. And then, the generation, what's the one after that? Millennials, and then generation Y or Z generation,
maybe Gen Z.
I mean, they're not going to put up for that shit, because they're really getting screwed off of how our country and our world's been run for the last 40, 50 years. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that are getting totally hosed by it now. And it's always interesting to me to see comments and thoughts from them on what's going on, because they're always, the media will always portray this as like, millennials aren't buying diamonds anymore. And they're like, yeah, I'm just trying to, make enough money to eat.
Right? Pay my student loans.
And it's stupid, dude. It's the media is so dumb about it. They think everyone's dumb. They think everyone is just dumb enough to buy it. But this is the thing about the internet and like YouTube, is there's so much information out there. I think we talked about this a long time ago, back in 2008, probably. There's like so much there. It's like, I don't even know where to start sometimes when I'm like, I want to look up something different. Mm-hmm. I don't even know where to start, because you can look up anything. You can really find anything.
I think that's why algorithms came up, like as far as trying to be a positive, to help you parse through all that infinite information and put stuff in front of you that they predict you'll have an interest in. Okay. So that's a good side of an algorithm. Unfortunately, it makes you put blinders on, and I think it gets better and better at predicting, and you start looking at the world like this instead of like this. So
this is a really great point, and because it's so interesting, it people give it a lot of power, and it does have a lot of power, because when you start to focus in on something you're interested in, it'll just start showing you more and more of that. But what's great is, I guess, or what the good part of it is that it's still up to you to decide what you need. Because people can be into things, and then, one day, like I've done it maybe 2 or 3 times over the last year. I've just like emptied out my search history, emptied out my whole YouTube history, and just started over, because I was just so sick of seeing the same shit over and over.
Yeah.
So, if you're someone who, and this is why I think it's such a great point, is like, if you're someone who is like really scared of everything, and you start to see all these news articles and Fox News tells you this, and you're one of those people that goes down that path, it's hard to get out of that if you don't have anything else to look to, if you don't have any other interests, right? And that's sort of what I've been trying to fight against lately, is trying to change my interest back to things that do mean something to me, like music and making sounds with a guitar. And, like, because of my interest in this, this pedal that I ordered and got today, I was looking at Hendrix videos, and all of a sudden, what pops up in my feed yesterday, but something I'd never seen. I guess it's unreleased, and I sent it to you, but it's that that live in Maui Rainbow Bridge concert, but it's like a second concert, and I didn't know that there even was any other footage. And dude, I was like really blown away by that, you know? Like, I mean, I was just like, shit, this is better than the first part. The first part has all that commune, I don't know what that thing was. It seemed like a cult, that guy at the beginning of that movie. But yeah, sorry. But anyways, this was like just really cool to see something different, you know? But anyways, what did you think of it? Did you?
I watched that this morning. You know, what's funny is, and I know this probably happens to you too, sometimes when we send stuff for the other person to watch, it just gets pushed so down in your messages or even the conversations that we have that I hadn't gotten around to that, but I kind of had blind faith that it would eventually come up on my feed. Well, it came up on my feed this morning, and that reminded me that you sent it to me. And I really didn't have much going on this morning, so I just put it on before I was doing anything today, and it's only like 35 minutes, so I listened to the whole thing. He sounded really tight to me. I don't know if you thought that, but it sounded really tight. It sounded like they were having fun.
Yeah.
And my favorite part about it was just that the video was trained on Mitch and Jimmy, and you got to watch them just really interact like two friends jamming, like the way we used to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, there's just no replacement for that in music when both people know what the person's doing, what they're going to do next, and you're both smiling and you're relaxed. And so, you know, I got a kick out of those segments of the video.
Well, I think that's so cool that you honed in on that, because I saw that too. Because they even like had moments where they did the thing, they look at each other and smile like, holy shit, like this sounds really cool. And I think you hit it on the nail on the head, hit the nail on the head. He looks like he's having fun. Where I've seen some other videos of him in that era, like later on, I guess that was 69 or 70.
That was 70, August of 70.
Okay, so
about a month
where he just looks like
about a month before he died.
Wow, really? Shit.
Didn't he die like September 6th, 70?
Yeah,
something
September
like that.
16th or September 18th of 70.
Yeah, so that was very.
No, I'm sorry. Well, I was just gonna say, like, I've seen a lot of videos of that time period where he seemed miserable, and I don't want to put that into his head and say, I don't know. But he certainly seemed like somebody who was like, I have to fucking be up here and do this. I don't want to do this gig, but they need me to play fucking Purple Haze for like the 400th time this year, And so it was cool to see that and to see him. And we had brought this up. You had brought this up too to me, and I think I agree with you. I think that's his favorite band, Mitch Mitchell and then Billy Cox not Billy Cox, the bass player.
It is Billy Cox.
Or Billy Cox, yeah, bass.
Yeah.
And I think that's ultimately like
there's no doubt about it, and I'll tell you why. Jimmy liked the way Buddy Miles played, but Buddy Miles was just too strong of a personality back there, man. I think, Mitch worked with Jimmy better. I'm just positive of it. I've heard
Mitch a lot who buttered the bread.
I've heard a lot of stories about Buddy Miles, dude. Like, have you heard the Bob Weir story?
No.
There's some time where the Grateful Dead were in the studio, and Buddy Miles is a huge guy, and they got wind that Buddy Miles was there, and at this point, Buddy Miles was a junkie, and he was notorious for like stealing anything that wasn't hammered down in a studio. So they saw Buddy Miles, and nobody could stop him because he was so huge, and everybody was scared of him. So like, anytime Buddy Miles would come, or this particular incident, everybody just starts shuffling and grabbing all the microphones and hiding all the microphones. So that'll give you some kind of indication of Buddy Miles' personality. It's a very strong personality. And I think that, he probably gave Jimmy more lip than Jimmy cared for. And I'm just making this up. It's just through my own observation. But the main point is, his favorite trio was Billy, Mitch, and Jimmy.
Yeah.
And I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I heard a similar story, and I don't remember it well enough to really tell it, but there was something that happened after that New Year's Eve gig that made them kind of have a falling out. And
okay, see, I never heard that.
Yeah, there was something there that happened too. That maybe was the last straw or something, But anyways, it was cool to see that video and really have, it was pretty unedited. I mean, there were a couple of parts where the the video goes out or whatever, but the sound still goes fine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not for very long, but it's just cool, man. It was just fun to watch him in his element. And I think he loved, he loved the band. He loved the Vista, like where they were and the group and the people there. And it was just like one of those things where it's made me happy to see that, again, and see something different.
Yeah, a few more comments on it. Obviously, I guess my first exposure with this era of his playing, because a lot of people probably don't realize when we were young, music was a lot more scarce than it is today. It wasn't just everything was available to everybody all the time.
Yeah.
So some of the earlier or, later Hendrix stuff was a little bit harder to come by. The only thing I ever ran across was The Cry of Love. But it immediately made me aware that he was going in a different direction with his music. It wasn't psychedelic pop anymore, especially like that first album. I mean, but it was basically, in my mind, militant rhythm and blues. Okay, just fierce rhythm and blues. Just with just very rhythmic, repetitive hooks, and there was a militancy to it, almost like, I don't know. Well, Band of Gypsies, I felt like that was Black Power, Yeah, that was like the first time ever that you had a rock band of three black brothers playing to all white audiences, and they were a force of nature.
Yeah.
So, so that thing about the change in the playing style is I think what attracts both of us to this era of Hendrix. But another thing I wanted to talk about is when I was watching him play today and play really well, it got me to thinking of, and you'll love talking about this, about some of his blues contemporaries, Albert King, Buddy Guy, B.B. King, all those people that were still awesome in the 60s, who, for better or worse, never really got put in front of white audiences until later, and as a result, they aren't household names in the same way that Jimi Hendrix is today. Okay, and the whole story of Hendrix playing with Little Richard and the Isley Brothers, and then for whatever reason going to play in England and kind of honing his chops there, and signing with Chas Chandler of the Animals, and getting reintroduced to the States after he had become a hit in the UK. That's what I want to talk about.
Okay.
Let's talk about how different Jimi Hendrix's career would have been or could have been had not Chas Chandler basically told him he was going to be his manager, and really Chas figured out how to sell Jimi when nobody else could figure out how to sell him. And what Chas figured out is he was going to sell him to white hippies. And he had that breakthrough to white audiences, which leads to huge success and money and fame that all these other blues musicians just couldn't quite get over the hump. And I just want to talk about Chas Chandler in that equation.
Yeah, I think so. The story that I always heard, he was pretty much, talking about Jimi Hendrix, was pretty much in obscurity in New York at that point. And he had,
in the Village,
we're talking 66, 65, 66, where he had sort of gotten off of the, what he was on, which was like the Chitlin circuit with like the Isley Brothers and Little Richard, where he just had made a decision that he didn't really want to be a sideman anymore. And he felt like he wanted to get out on his own and do something. And, he was strange, he was different. He wasn't like, a Buddy Guy or a Freddie King, who was pretty straightforward. This is the kind of blues I play. He wanted to do all these different things. And he was pushed back a lot by the Isley Brothers and Little Richard for, getting out in front and playing with his teeth and playing behind his back, because they were threatened by that. Because he was a showman, So, I mean, and that's not to say that those blues players didn't do that, but they were more, I feel like they were more straight ahead, like straight blues, whereas he had all this other stuff that he would learn to play. Isley Brothers and Little Richard's a little bit more rock and roll, that. So yeah,
Oh,
and
that's a
then it
good
was,
point.
so it was actually it wasn't Chaz that found him. It was Kathy Etchington, I think was her name, and she was Keith Richards' girlfriend at the time.
Okay.
She was visiting New York. I think the Stones were playing there or something, and went and saw him at the Cafe Wah. And she went back to Chaz Chandler, who she knew was wanting to get into managing people, and was like, "You have to see this person."
Okay.
And it was like nobody in the place listening to him play. You didn't have like a big crowd. And I mean, it was like Chaz like immediately saw that in him, like, ooh, that's something that's different and new and fresh, and so that's what got him to like just come back to England. We'll set you up with these people. He got to meet all of those people that were his heroes, like the Stones and Clapton. There's a famous story. Do you know that story about Clapton, him playing with Clapton the first time? Do you want me to tell that story real quick, or
yeah.
Okay, so quick. So he goes to England first week in England. They go see the Cream at whatever local club that they're playing at. Chaz goes up, asks Clapton, hey, I have this guy brought from New York. He wants to play. Can he sit in and play with you guys? So Clapton's like, sure, come on up, and puts him up there, and he just rips Killing Floor. And if you've ever heard, which I know you have, but if anybody out there, if you've heard the version of Killing Floor that he does at Monterey, that's the first song he opens with. That like he played it like that, and the story is that Clapton's hands just dropped to his side. He unplugs his guitar, runs backstage. Chaz Chandler goes back there, and Jimmy's still up there playing and jamming. And Chaz goes back there, and Clapton's back there lighting a cigarette, and he said his hands were shaking. And he looked at him and he says, "Is he really that fucking good?" And like that was how they met. But they became good friends. But anyways, I think it's just an interesting dynamic of how you're right. He was nobody in the States. They took him to England, and all of these white boy players that love the blues went crazy for him.
Well, it had to do with Chaz Chandler being from the Animals, and they'd already had previous stateside success or worldwide success. So he had the connections, and he knew how to do it. And I just think it was serendipitous to some degree, but you cannot discount the role. I mean, and nobody does. I just kind of wanted to talk about it a little bit because it was fateful. It was serendipitous. It changed the course of Jimi Hendrix's career. But I wanted to backtrack to one other thing is, so Chaz Chandler, obviously, and I'm not even going to say just those blues players, but you've seen the talk of like Albert King talking about how he could slay Hendrix as a guitar player. But that's
bravado, man.
I know. I was gonna use the word bravado too, but that's why Albert King is so badass.
Yeah,
he's a bad motherfucker.
Yeah, he is a badass.
So
he is a badass.
Chaz Chandler won, but LSD too. We can't ignore that elephant in the room. Do you know any story about when he first took it, or?
Well, no. And so that's the funny thing is, because I was going to bring this up. So there's the Jimmy that left the States, and then there's this moment when he was in London, and then there's the Jimmy that came back to the States, and that is two different people. And in there somewhere is LSD, and I don't know where or how, but I don't know if I've ever read a story about the first time or whatever, how he got into it, but it had to have been in that period, 66 to 67. Somebody, because I mean, in New York, he was wearing like trench coat. His hair was a little weird, but he was wearing like trench coats and normal kind of clothing. I mean, that's a lot different than what he.
I would posit it this way, dude. LSD was Hendrix's metaphorical crossroads. When Robert Johnson went down to the crossroads, man.
That's a good way to put it. Hopefully.
Well, I mean, like you said, it was a different person, and all of a sudden he had a unbelievable trick bag that nobody else had or had ever seen before. So somebody can make a really cool movie about that story.
Well, you know what? It's like stuff that was probably in there, but it just needed needed something to get plugged in to like
Mm-hmm,
turn it on,
mm-hmm.
you know?
No.
So I mean that makes sense, man. I
Well,
mean
and so much of, we talked about so much about what LSD does is it changes your perspective. It changes your way of looking at things. And I think we both agree that he had a different way of looking at electric guitar. That's why he played the way he
yes.
did. He had a
Well, and this
different
is the thing.
approach.
And shit, I mean, funny enough, that could be why there's such a difference between like him and a buddy guy and a. Now I don't know if they ever tried
Mm-hmm,
LSD, but my
mm-hmm.
guess is they were like, "I'll give me a fucking shot of whiskey or some cognac." Not gonna do that, you know. Or and I think I've even read a story where buddy guy said I tried weed once and I didn't like the way it made me feel. So like he's like I like wine and whiskey. And but I don't know if that's totally true, but so I mean that's the thing about Hendrix is that it changed the way guitar was played. Now and people can say, like, well, it was sloppy, it didn't sound perfect, but it's like, that's the thing. It doesn't need that, right? That's not part of the deal here. It's like he's experimenting in real time on stage, figuring shit out like distortion,
Pat,
screaming. It's like,
music is self-expression. I was just talking to you the other day that I prefer to express myself by a little bit more rough, sloppy playing. Like, I don't know where this goal to play music perfectly ever came from. You just play the way you like to play, man.
dude, it comes from, I think, something else we talked about. There's some people that learn to read music, and that's how they learn music, and that has to be very precise. And I think maybe that aesthetic took over, and
Mm-hmm.
what we see nowadays, I don't know when you could say it really took off, but nowadays most shit is pretty heavily processed,
Mm-hmm.
including the singing, and interestingly enough, I watched a video today about a guy that took Hendrix's "A Bold as Love," right? He played that, and he was talking about time signatures, and he's like, does Jimmy play in time? And they didn't have metronomes back then, when he recorded that. So he plays it, and he figured out that it changes the tempo several times throughout the song,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
he's like, that's Jimmy's tempo, that's Jimmy's thing, right? That's his soul. And
Mm-hmm.
because people would ask him like, why does it sound so much more soulful when he plays versus like this other person? And he's like, and that's why. It's because it's him doing him. It's
Mm-hmm.
not, like I can play to a metronome. Like if you're recording something, I get that. I understand why that's important, but it also feels really restrictive at the same time. So, things weren't like that back in the day, dude. Like you got a
It
band
feels
in
like a
there and you play.
punishment, man.
Yeah. Right. Cause it's like a whole other thing you got to practice, right? Cause
Mm-hmm.
it's not just like easy 1, 2, 3,
Well,
do
and
it.
it's not fun, dude. Like when you're playing music, you want to pay attention to something else and some annoying click that won't go away.
Yeah. Like shit, that's really soulful. But yeah, it's just interesting. I think, this is where a lot of that difference comes from is yes, I mean, he got that exposure that they didn't get, which, he ended up helping them get exposure by kind of talking about them. But I mean, I think it's like, he is such a unique force in the world of what he did with the guitar. It wasn't like that before. I mean, even Clapton, who was considered, the best guitar player in the world, recognized that because Clapton was where Jimmy heard the wah wah pedal for the first time, where he heard a fuzz pedal for the first time. But then what he did with it was 1,000 times different than what Clapton was doing with it. And so I think just his sheer force of nature and, the LSD probably, created this. And I mean, Jesus, dude, he was like a falling star, dude. It was like burnt, and he just like came out, just exploded, and then it was gone,
Mm-hmm.
and I often have those thoughts about, because a lot of that later stuff he did that didn't get released really until later on, like House Burning Down, Isabella, Dolly Dagger, Drifting, a lot of those songs off Cry Love. I mean, holy shit, dude, like that was going in a direction. It's like, I mean, I hate to say that, like, oh, what would have been, because I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
is what it is, but I mean, it would have been cool to see like how that changed.
Well, my take on the what would have been thing is at a bare minimum, we would have got a few more years of creative production. You know, we may not have gotten Hendrix into 1985 but it's sure he was on the cusp of something great. Everybody knows that, and it would have been nice to see, you know, maybe 2 or 3 more albums play out right then.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's why they keep trying to make that play out. His
Yeah, I know what you're saying there, but it's a really exciting time for a lot of us, and you know.
Yeah.
The Hendrix estate's obviously a very controversial entity these days.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, that's pretty much family for you, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, they want to have the rights to that shit. I mean, I don't think he would have cared either way, but maybe he would have. Maybe he would have. But you know, like there was that movie that the dude from Andre 3000 was in.
Outcast,
and he actually did Outcast. He actually did a really good job of portraying Jimmy, but they couldn't use Jimmy's music, so it just sounded off. You know, it was off because anytime they'd show him playing music, it was just like this generic Hendrix riff, you know, in the background, and it was just kind of like, oh, that sucks.
That's a real letdown because I had always heard that movie wasn't very good, and I found it really hard to believe because Andre 3000 is so charismatic. And I could really see him kind of inhabiting a person that was Hendrix-like, you know, well, and on screen.
Yeah, and he did that. I thought he did that as showing his personality, but
his
family wouldn't let it do it.
Yeah, I get that, and I had never heard that was the problem with the movie. It totally makes sense, dude. I mean, what impossible odds to overcome when making, you know, a Hendrix movie. Dude, you can't do it without the music. Right. Somebody should have just stopped them.
I know, man. Or they should have kept fighting for it or something.
Yeah.
You know, it was because they showed some parts of him that were human. You know, he wasn't always like the super like, yeah, man, you know, like he had some shit going on. He had some trouble. But that's what the thing. I'm just like, well, you're trying to keep this view of him going. It's like, let it be, let it be what it is. I mean, he wasn't perfect. He was just a human being trying to fucking make his way, you know? But, yeah, so that was kind of a shame, you know, because I could see that movie being good if they had the music in it, you know. It would have been a lot more interesting. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like it's, you know, I know you've given me shit once in a while about him being such a big influence, but I know you're only joking, but, he is a big influence on me, and always has been. But it's because it led me to those other players too. You know, part of it was him and like Jimmy Page led me to fucking Buddy Guy and Howlin' Wolf and Freddie King and Muddy Waters and all those great players that I learned from in BB King. You know, just because they would talk about them. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic, but it's great stuff, man. I've been, you know, again like. Just because I had this pedal coming, I was like, oh, let me listen to this song again. Let me listen to that, see how he used it. And it's just cool to kind of go through that catalog again. Cry of Love, I listened to some of that album too. And just, it's fun, man. It's kind of fun to reminisce almost, that stuff.
Yeah, I wonder can you use that pedal to sound like anyone else but Hendrix, or is it just immediately like that's Hendrix?
Yeah, it's got a chorus. It's got chorus and vibrato. So the chorus part you can do is like, I mean, another big player of that was David Gilmour, who had one of those, and he did like echoes and you know, the whole thing in Pompeii. He used that. He used it on their most
Dark Side.
Dark Side of the Moon, and you know. So I mean, there's players like that, but there is obviously an inimitable sound that comes out of it at a certain point where it's like, that's Jimi Hendrix sound.
Because whenever you sent it to me, I was on the pedestrian bridge. A lot of times I just ride down the hill and go sit on that bridge if it's not too crowded and people watch. And there was a band, 2 dudes and a little generator and a couple amplifiers setting up to play right when I sat down, and it's kind of awkward because I wasn't really sitting down to listen to them, and you know, I didn't have any money to tip them or anything, so I just faced in the other direction. And the first song was Bob Marley, and it was, I don't know, it was okay. It probably reminded me of me singing Bob Marley in my 20s. You know, heartfelt, but you know, not the best. And I was like, well, that's cool. You know, that's cool. They're out here. And then the other dude took over, and he was singing this loud, raunchy blues thing. It sounded better, but it's not what I wanted to be listening to when I was relaxing on the bridge. And I was listening to your shit while they were playing.
Oh, okay. So,
And I could still tell it was Hendrix. Or, it still
right,
sounded.
right.
That
Well,
was the point.
that's the setting. I mean, it's not a setting.
Oh no, but you know what I mean.
That
I basically I knew that you weren't really sending me a song, that you were telling me you got your pedal.
yeah.
That was clear, and I was happy for you.
So yeah, it's kind of cool. I'm gonna be enjoying that for a while. Well, this is the whole thing. It's like I'm gonna, I've been trying to record more and do things like that. So it's gonna be good to do that and do it my way, do it the way I want. And some of it has to have a click track because I don't have a drummer, and I'll have to add a drum later. But maybe not. I don't know. Some of it won't have necessarily. It's just trying to figure it out, I guess. Tell me, where is Doug Som Hill? I don't know if I know where that
Doug
is.
Som Hill is down in what they call Butler Park, which is the park that they put right next to the Long Center.
Oh, okay.
Where they put that pond in. Well,
Is that where the pianos were that one time?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay.
And the deal is, when they dug that, there's a pond out there, and when they dug that pond out, they built a big pile of dirt and made a hill, and it's really cool. It's really cool landscaping. Cool. And there's a cement path that winds up the hill like in a corkscrew manner, and then when you get at the top of the hill, it's how they like put the state of Texas in the concrete, and like El Paso's over here, Lubbock's over here, that's up there, and there's a little a plaque telling you a little bit about Doug Som.
Cool.
And it's really cool. It's really cool that there's a place called Doug Som Hill. I love that guy. I get such a kick out of him. And so that's what that was for whatever. And how the reason I went to Doug Som Hill was because of that band. They were harshing my mellow. I was like, no offense, but this is not why I sat here. I'm fucking out of here. Yeah. And I went to Doug Som Hill and had my little piece, and then the crazy circus act came up to me. So that's when I just decided
circling around like a shark.
But at that point, it was getting time to ride home and go ahead and do this. But it was quite humorous, man. Everybody likes to go up that hill. It's a fun ride up because you get to ride in a circle up as you elevate, and then when you get to the top, it's just a view of everything.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, that's interesting. I think it's kind of funny that guy was such a weirdo about that. But.
Oh, dude, you go to downtown Austin or anywhere near the lake, dude, it's all the weirdos are out on their bikes, man. And people that are way weirder than like our threshold for weirdness. Like these people are, enough to make you go, that guy scares me.
Well, that makes me think I need to bring my bike down and ride down there with you one time.
You should. It's a lot of fun. Especially from here, it's all downhill.
Right.
So you can get from here to the lake in 15 minutes. That's why I knew I could go do that. I didn't leave until 12:30.
What's the route that you take? Without saying where you live.
Oh, just the back roads. Basically, okay. If you can connect with the neighborhood across the way from Bannister, and then just kind of ride. It's basically set up for bikes, dude. And on a Sunday, there's nobody on the roads. That's why I went today. It's like the most peaceful riding you can ever do.
Did you take that hippie highway or whatever?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I did. And funny, the last few times I've been down to the river, it's been off the charts busy. And kind of post-COVID spring, it wasn't that busy today. I don't know what everybody's doing, but it was surprisingly light traffic down there. Maybe I was early. I don't know.
Yeah, it's surprising because it's gorgeous out, man. It's like weather, because we had those 2 days where it's like almost 100, and now it's really perfect. It's like 80 something, so it's great.
No,
I just took the dog for a walk. Anyway.
All right.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. This is I enjoyed this one. I always like talking about Hendrix. I have no problem with that. Peace. So thanks for listening. Remember, check us out on YouTube. Check us out on all the podcasting platforms. We are Pie the Corner. Have a great one.
Give us a like. Give us a comment. Over and out.
Adios.